You can catch me reading outside all summer long. Hey book besties, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be rounding up summer book recommendations for you. All of these books are either thrillers or romances, so we're gonna have some fun. Plus, I will be sharing a few books that I have on my summer TBR. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stick around for more book content. I love sharing book recommendations like this one, reading wrap-ups, book unboxing videos, and all the fun bookish things, so make sure you're following along. So as I said, I'm going to be sharing summer thrillers and summer romance books that you can add to your TBR this season. I love reading in the summertime. There's just something that hits so different about reading outside, whether you're just reading on your porch, reading by the lake or the pool or the beach. I love it. Where I live, we don't have a beach, unfortunately. I grew up by the beach, so I miss it, but I do like to go to the lake sometimes and read, and I do a lot of reading outside on my deck, which is just so lovely. First up, I'm going to round up some summer thriller books that I highly recommend. First up, we have You'll Never Know. This book is one that has topped my thriller list for this year so far. It is incredible. We're following a couple who goes out on a hike and the wife ends up getting abducted. And you are following this man along as he's trying to get his wife back. The vibes are definitely summer-like because it's takes place outdoors for most of the story. It was so gripping. The Hitchhikers is a book that blends some historical fiction with some thriller mystery vibes. In this story, you're following a couple who is headed, I believe, to Canada to go to the Summer Olympics. And as they're stopped somewhere along their trip, they run into a young couple. And this couple is not who they seem. This was absolutely wild. It was giving like locked room vibes, even though they're on the road. I could not get enough of this one. It was so creepy. Next is Forget Me Not. This story follows a woman who's going back to her hometown after she lost her job, and she's got some issues with her hometown because her sister went missing 1 year and they never found her. So she's sort of trying to figure out what happened to her sister, and she gets a job at a winery, the last job her sister had when she went missing, to figure out if she can put some clues together. This does take place during the summer, and it is dual timeline, and I want to say that both timelines are like summer set. It was so good. This was one of my favorite thriller books I read last year. Next is Smile for the Cameras. This is another one of my favorite thriller books. This story follows a group of people who had starred in a cult classic horror movie together, and they're coming back together for a reunion at the same place that they filmed their horror movie, which was on site on some creepy cabin, and some weird things are starting to happen. Plus, there's something that happened in the past that's sort of haunting them, and this does take place during the summer, so there are those summer vibes there. It's at this secluded cabin, near a lake. It was so freaking good. Next is another book that has some historical fiction vibes to it, God of the Woods. Now, this story takes place on a lake, and lake settings are such a good summer vibe. I love it. This one is set in the 70s, I believe, late 70s, and it is multiple timelines, multiple POVs, and essentially what you're following in this story is a girl who went missing from her cabin as she's at camp on a lake. And this is a similar kind of vibe to something that happened previously in the story. So you're trying to piece together what happened, and you're mostly following a detective who's trying to work everything out. And the thing about this camp is that it's owned by a couple who lives right nearby, and they are very wealthy. So you're dealing with some wealthy people doing bad things. It was so good. I loved it so much. Plus, it takes place in upstate New York, which I lived for a very long period of time. So I loved all the little references to the places around there because I recognized them. So yeah, it was really, really good. Let's keep these camp vibes going with Summer of '99. This book similarly follows a girl at a summer camp, but in the 90s. So it is a dual POV because in the 90s, this girl was at camp and something tragic happened during her summer there. But you're following her story through 3 summers because all these characters, it leads into what happens during the summer where everything went wrong. And after that happened, the camp closed down. But in the present, they're reopening the camp, and so this woman is trying to face her demons with what happened. This was such a crazy ride, but the vibes were like immaculate. If you ever went to camp in the 90s, you are going to feel so nostalgic for this story, and it's very short and fast paced, so you can easily breeze through this. Coincidentally, all the rest of the thrillers on this list are lake settings, so just enjoy the vibe. Next, we have Whispers on the Lake, or Whispers of the Lake, and this story follows a woman who had a falling out with her best friend, but now her best friend has gone missing and she's not sure where she went, and it's really unlike her to not respond to people. So she has to go in search of her friend, and she figures out her last known location, which is on a lake. And she has to figure out what happened to her, and she's piecing everything together. It was so good. You were just right along with her trying to figure out this mystery. Next up is Camp Lanier. This one is a little bit YA, but it doesn't really read too YA. You're following a young girl who found herself in some trouble. She ends up getting arrested, and she gets sent off to this camp to work off her time. And she goes to this place called Camp Lanier. Now this is set on a real live folklore about Camp Lanier, and that there is a town underneath this lake. So there are some weird things happening here on this camp as it is, and then there's some weird things happening in the lake. It was absolutely crazy. I could not stop reading. I was just so gripped in this story. And I saved the best for last. Grady Lake. Now this is a series, but you don't have to read all of them. You can just read the first one, though you are going to want to absolutely go right into the next two because it is just that good. This story follows a woman who is moving back to her hometown, and she lived on a lake in Michigan that's very much a tourist destination. And her family owns a restaurant and some cabins on the lake. So you're meeting all these eclectic people and the people that she left behind. But there is also a mystery going on because her sister, her older sister, had gone missing when she was a teenager and she was never found. So she's kind of trying to figure out what happened to her because something else is happening very similar to her sister's story. A young girl who is a tourist ends up going missing. So you're following her story, figuring out both of these mysteries to see if they're connected, and it was so good. And I will say that while these stories, there's 3 books, each mystery sort of wraps up on its own, so you don't have to go into the next book. You do kind of figure out what happens, but there's still more to the story, so you want to keep going. It was so good. I highly recommend this whole series. I binged it in less than a week. The books are all 3 very short, so you can easily breeze through this in just 1 week on vacation. Next, let's round up my romance summer book recommendations. First up, we have The 7-Year Slip. Now in this story, you do follow, it's a long time period that you're following these people, and it is a magical realism story, so there's some time travel in there, which was a lot of fun. But most of the story takes place in New York City, and it does take place during the summer months, or a spring, summer kind of vibe, and it just has this I don't know, it's a vibe of this hopefulness and renewalness that you always feel in the summertime that just feels light. I could not get enough of this story. Next is Love is an Open Book. Now this book could be a spring read, but also a very summery read because it does take place during a warmer time of year, and it's a friends to lovers romance that was just so beautiful. And these 2 friends have been friends for a long time. She's a writer and she's kind of feeling stuck in a series that she's working on, so she enlists her friend to do trope tests. So they try out all these different tropes so she can figure out what she's wanting to do in her book, and a lot of them are summery outdoor kind of activities that they end up finding themselves in, and it was so freaking good. This is absolutely one of my favorite romances ever, and I highly recommend it. Next is Flawless. A cowboy romance book during the summer just feels like such the vibe, and this one is the first in a series, so you don't have to read the rest of the series if you don't want to. You can just dive right into this one. It's totally okay. But this story follows a woman named Summer who ends up having to work with a bull rider named Rhett after he finishes his season in the PBR because he has some scandal. She is on his, I think with his agent or manager or something like that. So she's kind of enlisted to help him rebrand his image. And this one is so cute. It's got some workplace romance, got a lot of outdoor activities. It was a lot of fun. I loved this one. Next is Say You'll Remember Me. Now, while this story does take place over a long period of time, most of the scenes in this book are during the warmer months, but you're following this couple who meets and they go on this date together that's a fantastic date. But she ends up having to go back to her family across the country because one of her family members is dealing with Alzheimer's. So she goes to help out with her family. So these two end up having a long distance relationship, and a lot of the vibes are very much like this. It sort of reminded me of like being young and like when you're in college and you like separate from your friends that you don't see a lot and you end up meeting, and it just has this vibe of like, oh, we were so excited to be together. That's kind of the vibe that I got from this book. It was so good. I absolutely loved it, and I highly recommend the audio on this one. Next is Only Lovers in the Building. This story follows a woman who is sort of fed up with her life and how it's going in the city. So she ends up on a whim going down to Miami and deciding to live there for the summer, where she ends up meeting a bunch of people in the same building that she lives in and just really getting that found family vibe that she kind of needed after like being such a workaholic. This was so cute. If you love found family, you've got to check this one out. Next is Falling for Red. Now this is a story that's a 4th of July themed novella. It is like, it's a little long, I think, for a novella. Like it's a little over 200 pages, but it was so freaking good. And this is part of a novella series, but I will say you don't have to read all the other books in the series to enjoy this one. It stands well enough on its own. It was so fun. And I will say that, like, you know, I think sometimes the 4th of July can feel a little too like conservative sometimes, but this one is not that way. So if you're somebody who's not really like bleeding patriotism and like all about the like whatever, you will still enjoy this book because it is not from that perspective. It was absolutely incredible. Next is Finding Home. This is an indie book that is very much giving Sweet Home Alabama vibes, where a woman goes back to her hometown. It's a second chance romance. It's got a little bit of like a deeper topic to it, so make sure you check your trigger warnings, but it was very much giving those summer vibes. Next is The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Now I know this one seems like it's going to be a fall read, but it is not. It is very much giving summer vibes. This is part of the Dream Harbor series, and this is book 2. Again, you don't have to read book 1 or any of the other books in the series before you read this one. It does stand on its own. And this one follows a woman named Hazel who owns a bookstore, and she is very timid, doesn't really put herself out there a lot, but she ends up meeting up with Noah, who is new to town. He's been in town for a little while, but he's still newer, where she's a native, and he does boat tours for the town, and they end up doing like a little romance together and spending some time together. There's a lot of like boating that they do and outdoor summer activities. I was actually surprised that this like took place in the summer because it's like the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, but it was still super cute. It does bleed into like fall a little bit, but the summer vibes were so fun. Last is What If I Never Get Over You? This story follows a couple who spent a very fun time together in the summer while they were both traveling, and years later, they meet up again by happenstance when she gets a job at his family's property, and things are lots of tension. It was so good. Definitely has those summer vibes where it's a little bit more emotional, a little bit deeper than maybe some other fluffier romances you might read, but it was absolutely incredible. So those are all of the book recommendations I have for you for your summer TBR, but now I'm going to be sharing a couple of books that I have on my summer TBR. So I don't actually have too many. I'm trying to be like realistic about what my TBR is because I have a lot of other books that I'm wanting to read in the summer, or not even just in the summer because it's summer, but just because I need to read them. In June, I have a lot of Pride Month books that I want to read. In July, I'm going to a book signing event, and there are quite a few books on there that I want to get through before I meet the authors. And then I have arcs that I need to catch up on. So there's like a lot going on, but I do want to put in some summer reads throughout the season because it's just fun that way. First up, I have a historical fiction, Summer Island by Kristen Hanna. I need to read another Kristen Hanna book, and this one seems so perfect. Plus, it's actually not as long as some of her other books, so that'll be great. One book I have that is very long is Rules for the Summer. She is a chunker. I think she's like just under 600 pages, and I'll be honest, like, I like Megan Quinn's writing. I think she's so funny. She's hilarious, but the length of the book sometimes just put me off. So I wasn't really wanting to pick this one up when it came out recently, but I heard so many good things about it that it's like hilarious. So my plan is to just take my time with this one and really enjoy the vibes of it. I'm going to do an immersive read with it. So I think that'll be like a good way to get it in when I can, but not like overcommit to it, so I can like filter in some reads throughout, because sometimes like if I'm reading a book for too long, I get panicked that I'm like leaving other books behind. So I'm very excited to read this one because, like I said, I've heard it's hilarious, and who doesn't need some summer laughter? And then I have two thriller books I want to get to. First is If You Tell a Lie. I've been reading quite a bit of Lucinda Berry lately, and this one sounds so good. I actually just added this one because I saw somebody recommending it in another summer book recommendations video. I'm not totally sure what the book is about, but you can see people outside in a lake on inner tubes, so it must be summery, right? And last is The Summer She Went Missing. This is a YA thriller, and it looks thick, but it's YA, so I'm sure it's gonna be fast to get through and read, but it sounds really good. I love a missing person story. It's one of my favorite thriller tropes, and I've heard such good things about this one. So there you have it. Those are some summer books for you to read, and maybe you'll add the ones on my TBR to your TBR. I think they sound great, so we'll see. In the comments, let me know some summer book recommendations that you have, especially if they're in other genres like historical fiction or romantasy or anything else. Just let me know because I may need to add them to mine. We'll see. Thanks for watching, besties. I'll see you next time.